Hello everyone, and this is RC0538 back, and we're going to be doing some, well, Wargame Dragon. Usually I'll, make a Soviet general deck, or, East German motorized deck, or, some sort of deck of that sort, where it's pretty standard. I wanted to go ahead and try making some national decks of countries that aren't actually in-game. So to do that, I went ahead and made this, well, Syrian Army deck, and I've been playing it, and I've actually really enjoyed playing it, so I wanted to kind of go ahead and share it with you guys here. So, first we got some just pretty standard setup. We got a forward operating base with our supplies, some cargo trucks, and a flying command infantry squad. So I really like this, just, sometimes when you really want a CP there quickly, or, in case one of your allies doesn't have one, just having one, is always a nice backup. Infantry-wise, we just got some Motostrelkis and BMP-2 over 1986. This is kind of the latest BMP-2 line that you can get as the Soviets, and it's just, I really have found that I like it. You have those nice Conqueror's missiles with that 23 AP power, really nice. Of course, armor penetration, good accuracy, and good range. And then, of course, you have your autocannon, which is nice, with its 1,750 meter range. All in all, really nice infantry fighting vehicle. And yeah, if you want to just suppress infantry that's out in the open, deal with some light vehicles, while your tanks are dealing with some of the heavier stuff, can't really go wrong. And it does really well, of course, in forest conditions because of that kinetic power that it has. Then we got some regular Motostrelki in the BTR-60PB. BTR-60, of course, is a nice wheeled transport vehicle. Just, it's pretty standard loadout. Nothing really special about it, but just to get troops there quickly. We got ourselves BMP-1. I originally actually had these guys as VDV-90 and the MI-8 MTVs, because I really wanted to have some of those MI-8 MTVs. But I didn't know if it really fit the style of the deck. While I didn't think it was far-fetched for Syrian forces to have a couple RPG 9s like this, I just found I didn't really use them, or when I did use them, they weren't always the most effective. So kind of gonna try cutting them out, but just know that that's kind of an option if you don't want just some more regular line infantry. And then you got some Factorias now. There's, in my opinion, I go back and forth on whether I like the higher quality ATGMs or the lower quality ones. Usually I'd recommend something in the middle, but I do, in this case, recommend the Factoria because this deck was kind of designed, specifically for the map, straight to the point, and you never know how much area you're going to have to cover. And with artillery strikes, you're going to start losing, soldiers, and if you start losing, these small teams, well, you don't have exactly a lot of them, you only have 7, so having some that you can just scatter throughout an area, greater likelihood that they'll hit, greater likelihood that they might be able to get a side shot or rear shot, depending on where they're scattered. So that's kind of the infantry tab. Now moving on to the support tab, we've got, well, some Earl Z-23-2s, which I'd like to note are drone guided. It's guided by AI. There's no driver, no need for that due to superior Syrian and Soviet technology. I'm just kidding, Eugen, please fix your game. But then we've got just these, I guess what you could call pretty standard, autocannons, well, anti-aircraft guns. I've seen, for those of you who have seen footage like this, you see it on the news and in documentaries and stuff with just the ZU-23-2. It's pretty common to see, and it's a pretty decent gun. I found I actually really like these gun trucks. I was actually kind of surprised by that. I kind of like, oh, those are, just crappy gun trucks. I'm not going to use those. Because they're only 15 points. And, for, the space that takes up, I could get some Tungushkas, or, maybe a Smirch or something, something that may seem like a better option. But one of the things I found is that they're nice, they're expendable, but they allow you to put out a pretty high rate of fire. They don't have the best range against aircraft, of course. That was kind of to be expected. But, having that, it's just always been really nice to, just be able to spread these out. And like I said, this was kind of designed for straight to the point, so having these to spread out is just, nice. Like, you could, there's a lot of course, coastline that people could heli rush over. Just drop, 2 or 3 of these down, and it forms a nice picket line, or a bit of a deterrence for someone, who may consider, rushing from that direction. And the wheel mobility of the trucks is always nice. And then we got, just some Shielkas, of course, pretty common in most of my decks. I like them. They're cheap, and they've got, decent range. So kind of hard not to take them. They've got decent range against aircraft, though not the best. And I'm kind of just comfortable plopping them down, using them as general air defense, whenever I need them to. Concluding with the AA section, of course, we got some Beryuzas just for, that actual aircraft range, and when used properly, they can do a heck of a lot of damage, of course, to those aircraft. So, just combination of that high rate of fire, good damage, and that area of effect is always useful when you're, dealing with heli rushes and stuff. So yeah, I mean, you can just stun, you can just panic, stun, and destroy, enemy aircraft and helicopters like it's nothing with some of those. And then for artillery, we got an interesting choice. I've really fallen in love with this artillery vehicle. It's just a simple Gvozdika. Now, this might seem weird, especially considering the high quality options that Russia has, like the Malka or the MSTAS, both of which, I mean, that is some very tight dispersion. Very high HE power. Same with the MSTA. And so the Gvozdika, from the 70s, might seem just like a bit of an oddball to choose. But one of the things I do like about it is it has a decent enough rate of fire. I mean, it's, standard for pretty much all of these. But, you can deploy them in pretty decent numbers. I mean, I usually use 3 to a battery, or 3 to a group. And they can put out some pretty decent fire with that. It's usually enough to just stun vehicles, which is what you're going to be using most of the time artillery for anyways, unless you're trying to snipe like AA and stuff. And even then, I've been able to take out AA. Especially, these guys can get leveled up pretty easily. They'll kill stuff you didn't even know was there. And, yeah, I mean, you can just use them for a lot of purposes. Now, you're going to want to, have recon or line of sight. That's always the goal, but especially with these guys, their, firing radius is not the greatest, but of course, just having them is pretty nice. Now, some other options, like if you wanted some better air defense, like, of course, a book is always an option, but I just decided to not go with it. I just like the versatility that the Spogs offer. Tank-wise, a lot of tanks. Well, kind of. It's a lot of high-quality tanks, but we got some T-72BUs, or T-90s, rather. Of course, really nice, super heavy tanks. Some T-72B over 1989s, kind of think of them as my T-72B3 stand-ins. So just, of course, nice high armor. They can go toe-to-toe with most, Blue 4 tanks, so having that in your arsenal is just very nice to have indeed. T-72A, just general all-round support tank. If you want just fire support on a target with some very high HE power, just want a lot of explosives put on the target, well, the T-72A can definitely do that for you. Or, it's very useful in forest fighting. Like, sometimes, I was in a situation with this deck, actually, where they were using a lot of Leopards, Leopard 2s and Leopard 2A1s. And so that was not exactly conducive to a T-90 that I was trying to get out of the area. So I kind of just threw the T-72As into the fray. They did some damage, and then while they were focusing on them and reloading, the T-90 just came in and went in for the kill. And the T-90 made it out okay. So that's just one example of how, having some of these, more general all-purpose tanks can really augment and support your heavier tanks. And then we got a bit more of a specialty tank, that's why I put it here on the end, but the T-62MV1. It's not the best tank, and I preface that, it's definitely not the best tank. If you wanted something cheaper, I'd probably recommend something like the T-62M1 here, or the Ober 1987, or 75 rather. But it's sort of weird, I understand. But the nice thing about it is just that nice Arcan missile. And so one of the things that you can use with that anti-tank guided missile is if you stick these guys on the flanks, it's a very fast missile, hard to dodge, or, rather, hard to evade or, like, lose track of, the enemy when, it's going so quickly. So, if you stick these on the flanks, enemies engaging, they're closing, you shoot a couple of these Arcans off, say 1 or 2 hits, you just side-shotted them and killed them probably, because of that high armor piercing. So, really like him in that role. And, of course, they've got that main gun, so if you need to lock something down, you don't really have anything else, the T-62 can do that. So, that's kind of how I've come to like it. It's not, of course, like I said, not the best tank. I'd take, like, the Dyna, the Czech have, or the Sydney Day, but, you know what, as a, specialist tank, I am more than happy to welcome it. Recon-wise, bit interesting. We've got some Spetsnaz GRU, some Russian Special Forces assisting us. We just AK-74s, RPGs, and Dragunov, of course, inserted behind. Really like, that they can, do that. Makes them very quick, and you can get to areas that, most the enemy can't get to in that same amount of time. Then we got the Mi-24K, just some, flying recon. Usually, I'd recommend something like an Mi-2, but if you really want something that can stick with your attack helicopters, well, the Mi-24 is pretty much the way to go. And unless you, of course, want to go, one step better and get the K-52, which I would basically recommend every time over this, but for the sake of the deck, I figured we'd go for the Mi-24K instead. Then we got the BRDM-3 and BRDM-2. BRDM-3 I usually use more towards the front, while the BRDM-2 is just sort of scattered around to provide some general recon. It's nice and amphibious too. It's faster actually than the BRDM-3 in that regard, so you can kind of sneak past, some enemy, emplacements where they wouldn't expect it to be. And even more importantly, you can put it on, nearby islands and stuff. So like on Straight to the Point, you have some islands and stuff, and you can just plop them there and keep eyes on enemy ships and stuff. So that's always a nice feature. Vehicle-wise, we got some BMPTs. Not, once again, maybe not the most accurate to, real life, but I do believe they have one Terminator, but, it's with more field testing, not use. But, it's, of course, just nice anti-infantry, and I found it something that the deck can struggle with at times. If you're going up against large hordes of infantry, and you're kind of just stuck here with riflemen that's against something like Corps Mariniers, well, you're basically screwed. So, that's why I opted to take this, just to supplement it. Of course, we got what I kind of call the technicals, but the ZPTU-4 mounted on a BTR-152. Amazing vehicle. I mean, I'm surprised that, like, the pros and stuff never discovered this thing. I know a lot of them have moved on, but dang, this is a good vehicle. And it really seems strange, to call this, like, this amazing, wonder vehicle, but it is. And that's because of course, its main gun. Those ZPTU-4s that it has, freaking incredible. And I do mean that literally. Amazing, not amazing range, but, good range, ground 1,400 meters, and 1,750 against helicopters. And you'd be surprised how many times you can use this as a makeshift AA vehicle. Now, I wouldn't say this is going to be like the magic helicopter rush stopper, but, you can just rush with these. Like, like I made another video about, gun trucks are, not OP, where basically, sending these guys down the middle of the map was able to, and through unexpected places, was able to outflank, and catch the enemy off guard. So, of course, you can use them in that role, or, you can just use them on your line just to provide suppressing fire, or, like I said, as a last resort anti-helicopter weapon. For example, there was I was kind of planning a little bit of a rush into the enemy's spawn zone, but, I had a teammate who was getting bogged down by a Super Cobra. I, didn't really have anything to lose, of course. I mean, they were just 6 ZPT-4s. Well, I sent them in, I guess 90 points, in total. And they went ahead and they shot down, a Super Cobra. Just these little ZPTU-4 trucks. Not exactly what I expected them to do, but you know what? It worked. I'm not complaining. And yeah, I've used it numerous times to take on Apaches, other helicopters that just get too close, and you can really punish them for that with its high suppression and very high rate of fire. Just to compare this really quickly to our other 15-point AA gun. Naturally, it doesn't have the range against airplanes or helicopters, but darn, it does have a much higher rate of fire. Compared to the Earl. And it does have some armor too. Thing you gotta watch, though, is the autonomy. It can go from one side of the map to the other, but, put it through forest, you're gonna run through that fuel like nobody's business, so, it's usually better to stick to roads, but, you're really not gonna need it to go, usually, from one side of the map to the other, unless you're me. and I'll kind of detail my special plans with those later. Got some Salo, which I really just added just for fun, so nothing complex here. ASU-85, just wanted some, assault guns because we know they've been used in the conflict, and so added some ASU-85s. They're just nice, light vehicle, anti-light vehicle support, I guess you could say. I mean, you got the autocannon, sure, but, you can use these to maybe lock down a bridge, get some flanking shots, like I said, straight to the point, plop these, into a couple forest areas. Well, they might be able to get off a couple shots and take out some enemy units, so you never know. You never might be able to surprise you. Helicopters, pretty bare bones. Just got an Mi-24 VP card and some Mi-28. Now, I didn't go with the Mi-24P because I feel like ever since the patch, you can, they added the Mi-24 VP or nerfed it, and of course buffed the price. There just really hasn't been much of a reason for me to take the Mi-24P. The twin autocannons rotate on the Mi-24 VP, on the VP, and the missiles are better, so I just sort of take that now instead. And then we got we got ourselves a bit of havoc, and this thing can certainly cause it. Whether you're supporting a bit of a, not a rush, but, an insertion or something, these things are just incredible. Of course, high speed, medium optics, which is very nice. The autonomy is something to watch, but, usually, these guys are helicopters, they can handle it. And very, very good armament. I can't overstate that, just exceptional armament. And then, of course, we've got our air tab. Just some, I guess you could call it generic, but we got some Su-27 PUs or Su-30s. Very nice, with the pimples. The nice thing is, especially, with the amount of weapons that it has, like it's, like with some other fighters, they have, higher ECM, or like the Rafale has some stealth. The Su-27 can really just shoot a lot of missiles really quickly, and for that, it definitely can be used in that role. To supplement that, because I do, it has the same long-range missile, you can use the MiG-29 as a stopgap interceptor. So say, enemy just launched a big sortie, you use your Su-27s, but, the enemy, is following up with some other forces, so you can just call out your MiG-29Ms and, use them as makeshift interceptors. I've used them, I've even shot down and bested air superiority fighters with them, so, you don't need to, worry about their ability to handle that. Plus, I don't know, I've heard that this is, not actually real, that this stealth here is just fake, just Eugen with the, like, the 90% accuracy Kutes or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a super, it's a super gun, but it's not actually, if it's just, this is just a mess up, or if this is real, but if it is true, then dang, this thing just got a lot more powerful. And then, of course, ground attack, I just sort of added this because I'm like, oh, I just read this thing about how Su-25s are, deployed to Syria. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just add the Su-25. So I added the Su-25s, and great against, if you got a lot of, like, Leopard 2A4s or something coming your way, this is the thing you want to have. It's got some armor so it can take some of that Spog fire. It's got those Vickers so it can, use a couple at a time. I mean, this thing can kill a lot of tanks very quickly. And as a plus side, I would have rather preferred like the rocket pods of the Su-20 of its just Su-25 cousin, or older brother or whatever. The T just is has those pimples, but that does make it useful in kind of an anti-helicopter role. So say they're reconning you with, I don't know, like a Cobra or like some Kiowa variant or whatnot. You're gonna send in one of these things, and it'll pretty much shoot it down and probably make it out. Obviously that probably isn't that encouraging because of that, well, high price tag, but it is a very, very nice vehicle. I really would definitely recommend this over the Su-27. They have those air-to-ground missiles, but, it's alright. But it's just not my favorite, especially when you can get so many more Vickers for that same price tab, and a second vehicle too. Always a nice addition. Went ahead and added, though, the Su-27K in the naval tab. this is really what I'm going to touch on. I just want to touch on the naval tab, but the Su-27 just very nice when it comes to its armament. The muskets, are nice for picking off lone ships. They travel very quick, make them difficult for the enemy to intercept. And because they're only firing one, they'll pretty much evac immediately. So it's, hard to lose these unless they're, the enemy ship are behind an island or something. Then you got the Vimpels, of course. So once again, it goes back to that backup interceptor role that you can use them in. And sometimes just having those extra fighters can really change the tide. Then you got the Legion. We've got 2 cards of these. I have, these are just very nice corvettes. You got these very nice missiles. The way they're mounted, I love it. They'll just fire 2 very quick, very effective anti-ship missiles. Enemy doesn't know what hit them. The dual 76, not great, but certainly not terrible. And then you got the Seaweeds, of course. That's very, very good. Well, good, but I can think it's very good. Then you have the Janghu. This is its, larger supporting, this is, the big brother watching over the little guys. It has the actual, main guns, so it can take on enemy ships at, greater distances. And then, of course, you got the same missiles, so that's nice, so you don't have the hassle of, like with Blue Force, sometimes you either select all harpoons, or if you try to get, like, Lafayette's and Pegasus and some of the other, anti-ship missiles. I mean, you're looking at exosets, you're looking, of varying types, and you're looking at harpoons for the most part, so, trying to get those to line up can always be difficult. So you might launch the first salvo, harpoons, and then follow up with exosets or something, but, the fact of the matter is that just being able to have all your ships fire at once is a nice force multiplier, means you can really do a number on the enemy in that opening wave. That's more likely that more missiles will get through, and you can do more damage. The Muna, it's basically giving you 3 extra fobs, so, always nice. Now, I wanted to touch on a little bit about how you can use this deck, because it's a weird hodgepodge, in my opinion. A very high-quality tanks, some lower-quality air defense and support, some, very high-quality helicopters, some weird supporting planes and vehicles. So one of the things I've found I like to do is use these ZPTU-4s. Well, that was kind of weird, but using the ZPTU-4s, the Earls, and the BRDM-2s and the Zalos to kind of launch a raid into some of the, just moving fast along the road as quickly as you can. And you can usually reach the enemy spawn before, like, some, I don't know, like a little, command vehicle. And if you get there before the enemy caps the point, then you can just use them to secure it. Maybe drop in some GRU, or if you wanted to switch out those, and get those VDB, drop some of them in, and then you can drop some command units in. You can really throw a wrench in the enemy's plan. They'll drop, just expend a lot of effort trying to recap that point, but you can do a significant amount of damage in that time. These Earls are just pretty disposable, so you can use them as cheap AA, and they can really stop helicopter rushes, of course, because, you got 36 of them. And then you got the ZPTU-4s, like I said, use them. You can use them in an light anti-vehicle role. Very nice. Zalos, just quick fire support. And yeah, that's kind of how I like to use it. So you can do those quick precision strikes like that, backed up by some of these, higher end attack helicopters, while your mainline battle tanks, can hold the front. And you really won't, hopefully you won't be losing a lot of these, because obviously you don't have a lot, but if you use them right, they are very survivable tanks, and yeah, you should be able to make it out pretty well. Anyways, that's this deck. I hope you guys liked, maybe seeing something that isn't as conventional. It's not just, oh, let's take all the good stuff. So, I've had a lot of fun with this deck, and I hope you guys have that too. I'll probably have a video coming out soon, also detailing, my usage of this deck. Anyways, have a good day, guys. This is RC0538, signing off. Have a good